Okay, I'm a little bit early, but I think as people can always catch this on the front end, and you two that are here and I or anybody else out there may have something they need to get handled. That's the advantage of being able to record this. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. This week I've got a couple of things I want to take a look at, and first is I wanted to show you everybody what's going on in terms of geographic information systems. And then I want to, well, even before I do that, I want to show you something. This was this interactive session about data mining, and I want to show you something. It'll be interesting for you to see. I'm going to go over to America Online, which will date me and shows you how old an old person I am. Now, you'll notice, and I'll put this up here now for everybody to see. If you look here, first of all, the thing about the 117-year-old lady who has a drink of whiskey every night, definitely that's something that data mining, they found that out about me. That's just a bad joke. But what is interesting, and you take a look over here, you see the stuff from Wayfair. My wife and I have some lamps, little pendant lamps like those above our in our kitchen, and we had to replace. We thought we were going to have to replace them, but we were able to get them repaired. But now everywhere I go, I see stuff for pendant lamps or hanging lamps, something like that. So as I was out doing those searches for those, the cookies on my machine were being harvested, and now this is going to be popping up for the next, how many ever months are there. So I thought that'd be an interesting thing for you to see, given what we've talked about in terms of what's here in this interactive case about the airlines mining your data. And I was going to see if I could find another example there to show you. Let's see. No, that was just today's. But let me go over to the New York. Let me see if something will pop up on the New York Times, because they go over there a lot. And let's see. Now, most of you expressed some great reservations of New York Times. A lot of you expressed great reservations about this, and I clearly can understand. It's two-sided, and you may say, okay, it's kind of an invasion of my privacy, particularly if I'm flying. But a lot of these folks have the attitude of if you're going to use their service, they have the right. When you buy a phone, you basically sign away all of your control of your data, and that's something your age group is going to have to figure out. Your generation of dealing with these people, and I'm going to see what I can find down here that might be an ad or something of that type. Yeah, here's something. Now, one of the fun things I like to do is to go over and take a look at real estate in Manhattan, just because I'm a dreamer. What can I say? And so I'll get these ads to these properties, and I always like to look at stuff like that anyway. And you'll see it's there. So the kind of tracking that they talk about in the book, I deal with it. We all do, and especially the one with the lamps is incredible, because we had been searching maybe just a few times, and they locked in immediately, and there they are from Wayfair.com. Now, the one about the dad and the clown mask, where that came from, I have no idea. But I'm sure if I find a link on it, something will happen. Here's another lamp. So that type of data mining is, and a lot of you expressed some real reservations about it, and that I understand. Don't have any problem with that at all. And let me look over here at the LA Times. Let me see. I go over there quite a bit and see what pops up. Now, marketers like this ability to get that data, because then they can market to you. But you and I may not like it very much at all. And I'll see if there's anything on here that's an ad that they're trying to sell me something. They're pretty good about trying to blow stuff away or not let it pop up on you. So that's not too bad. And I haven't logged in. I'm sure if I logged in, I would probably be getting all kinds of stuff. But but many of you expressed some reservations about that, and I understand. And that again is one of the things the book talks about. It's a dilemma. It's a trade-off in terms of what the ability of a marketer to maybe present you some information and to push some information to you, as opposed to you just using a search engine and doing your best. But clearly, you're going to get that. Now, I'll go to one other place here, and these folks are the absolute masters at this, and they've got. Now, this is my wife, her account, and you're going to see that she has all kinds of recommendations for books, things inspired by her shopping trends, stuff like for the things I guess you put them in your high heels so you know your foot doesn't slip. You know, I haven't worn high heels in a while, so I don't know. And batteries. I know we were searching for some batteries. Yeah, and movies. So it's interesting, but yeah, a lot of you expressed reservation. It can hit the creepy factor real quickly. So I'm with you in understanding in that sense that it's a little bit disconcerting to encounter something like that. So I'm going to go back over here. I don't think I'm Xing myself out of here. Nope, I didn't. Now, I'm in student view today, you know, as you can tell, because we got some stuff I'm going to share with you on Wednesday. Now, Wednesday will be a remote. I think I put that in the announcement, a pre-recorded session. I got to sit through a bunch of stuff about insurance, so I can't get over here. So I can record. I'll have something recorded for you to take a look at, and you know, I'll do it probably in the morning. I'm glad my time is not my own. What can I say? And I see Shane there. Shane popping up on us. Okay. As again, again, there was a lot of, you know, a lot of people responded negatively to this issue of market niches and big data, and that's something, again, as I said, you're going to have to work through. The ability to, and the data harvested on you, you would absolutely have no idea how much data is collected, especially from your phones. Your phone is just like a little transmitter that tells everybody where you've been, what time you get up, what time you go to bed, everything you see. So if you've got that phone latched to you, you would be amazed how much data is collected on you. Now, there's a hands-on project that's due on the 22nd, and you guys want to try it. I've had one person who's reported me had trouble with blog.com. They're wanting a URL, and so if you go over there and you have that problem, give me a screenshot and just upload it. Now, I wanted to show you this, and then I've got kind of a little web safari I want to take with you today, and you want to click on that. This is the Landsat. This is the Landsat, which is a program, which is a series of satellites across the Earth, and they provide data on the landscape, topographical data. They're programmed to collect all kinds of information using a satellite, and basically, let me go back in here for a minute. I'll manage the 8 of us. Mute all. Okay. And that we've got, you can use that to zoom in on different areas. You can do a search for different types of things. And I'm going to just, I'm going to click off this for just a second. And if you want, you can view it full. Okay. And they will let the Landsat viewers design, and you can make a selection in terms of what area you want to see, what data you want to see, etc. And again, it's just all this stuff that's going on with mapping the world and creating what we call a geographic information system. And these data are mined. The first thing that happened with them was the global positioning system, and developing that so that anywhere you were, you could get GPS coordinates and you knew exactly where something was located, or even you were located. And then now has become a process of using the cloud, using high-speed computing, and these satellites that are constantly going across different parts of the earth to map. And they're programmed to map for certain things, and different agencies buy time with them, different corporations buy time with them. A lot of these major manufacturers, like automobile manufacturers, will buy time on Landsat and then go over their competitors' assembly plants to see how many vehicles are sitting outside to get a sense of what sales look like. And it's, of course, there are a tremendous number of, the military uses this stuff a lot. And so, again, this is one of those information systems that's out there. It's in the process of being developed. And I certainly would encourage you, to go out and take a look at it, because it's got some very, very interesting stuff. Now I think we might be able to pop out to the viewer in the wild. Let's see what we can do out here. Yeah, as you can see here, the different land, there's Sentinel-2, those are Landsat satellites. Now, some of these are dark, meaning they're up there, but they're in use. If you get my drift. There are a lot of estimates about how many satellites that are actually up over the earth. We don't know for sure, because a lot of them are military, and different militaries of the world have them, primarily the United States. China has a bunch of them up there. We do. I'm certain the Russians do. Probably every major country has at least one satellite, one or two, up scanning everybody. So everybody's watching each other, and to see, have people move troops and so forth. One of the ways that, for example, that they monitor the North Koreans is they have satellites that cross that country probably every 5 minutes, and those cameras are so sensitive in those that they can pick up just a flare of a rocket, and they know a signature, and if they see that, they know automatically a missile's been fired. They're that good. I had some good friends there in St. Louis, which is one of the agencies that works heavily with the GIS and Landsat, and it's amazing how much mapping they do. And there will be obviously a lot of activity going on in terms of what's happening with folks who've been impacted by the hurricane. But if you want to get some different views, you can look at this, and you can measure a distance. You can toggle some labels if you care to. This is the layers list, and let's look at that. There's map, there's satellite, and there's terrain. Let's map. Let's hit the satellite for just a second. Look at that. Okay, and this just gives you simply the Earth, without any political subdivisions driven applied over or wherever. Now, the whole idea of this is that the GIS is an underlying program, and think of it like a database, and then think like when I just chose that, you're running a query on that database, on the tables there. And so you can see, what North America looks like from space, and you can obviously see the differences in the topography and the distance, and you can see the drainage of the continent. Obviously it runs from north to south. You can see we're about here in a transition area. Oklahoma is between what we call the humid east and then the arid west, and then of course you have California. But again, one of the ways that we are hearing, one of the bits of feedback we're getting from people in science, and it's controversial, and I understand it. This business about global warming, what's gotten those people so revved up? Well, part of it is that as they've gone over, they keep all these data. This stuff all gets archived, and so when they look and they see 3 years later, 5 years later, that cap has shrunk, that's been the cause for alarm, and then looking for other kinds of cues in the landscape. So that's what's driven a lot of it, and whether or not that's I'm kind of, I have mixed feelings, because when I was your age, they were telling us that the world was getting colder, not hotter. So I'm trying to, and do we have a handle on something that might take 100,000 years or 50,000 years or 20,000 years? I don't know. Are all these hurricanes just an anomaly? Who knows? But we certainly can do some more efficient ways, and we do know there is a greenhouse effect. So we've got this. You can see again. We can look down and get some different views, and you pay for these views. Now here's the layers list, and we're on the freebie. Okay, so that's all we're going to get. Now, if you pay for the version, you can get just about anything you want, because it's going to be loaded in. Okay, and here's one on the terrain. And of course, if you want to, you can scope on down. This is a lot. You can see this is much more pronounced. You can see the mountain ranges in the United States. You can see the arid parts, the parts that are lush, more green. And you can, obviously, you could pop that across anywhere you want to. But all I could say is that, and with this thing of big data, especially with phones, the use of locational data is just, it's unbelievable. And rarely are you offline if your phone is on at any given time, because this is the primary thing that most people carry with them around the world. Then unless you get them walk away or drive away and leave your phone sitting there, then they can look at you. They can find you. How many of you have ever heard of Google Timeline? Okay. Well, let me cross this off for just a second. I'll show you something kind of interesting. This gets close to the creepy factor. Now, I have an Android phone, but this works on both. Now, this is called Google Timeline, and what this will do is will show me, it tracks my phone. So it tells me everywhere I've been, okay? Which, that data is being sent and harvested. It's being somewhere. So you can see I spent Saturday at Walmart, morning at McDonald's. Hey, I'm living like a king, aren't I? An afternoon at McAllister's. I was at Oklahoma Baptist University, and then I went to Cracker Barrel. Hey, I had the best of both worlds. Saturday, I was at Cracker Barrel again. I'm a Cracker Barrel addict, I guess. But here, I'll show you what I did today. And there's my trek from home to here. Now, if you look down here on the bottom, you can see a little jewel called Show Raw Data. And I'm going to point that, and it'll give you the data points of where I was and how long I was there. Okay? So these data are collected on your phone, whether you know it or not. And again, it's like that, at a certain level, there's part of me that says, well, I can't. Now, if you want to, and you want to check your phone, if this creeps you out, let me say this, go into your phone settings, and you probably will find a location setting where you can turn off the GPS. Now, I leave mine on in the event that I get kidnapped or something, okay? However, I don't think when I was kidnapped as a child, but the captors, people who kidnapped me, had to pay my parents to take me back. So I don't think I'll be kept this time either. But if this creeps you out, you should go on your phone, check your settings, and do what you want with your GPS. So if you don't want that data out there, you can shut it off, and it'll be in your phone settings. Phones are typically the way. Now, my two nephews used to track bad people, and the way they'd find them is with satellite imagery, and they'd find them with phones. And bad people, they'd buy a temporary phone, use it, and the one time they'd use it and keep it there, if they kept the phone after they made their call, and they stayed on it 5 to 10 minutes, they could find them. And so when they'd find bad people, they'd go visit them. But again, if this creeps you out, why, it's a privacy issue. And if I want to, I could just simply turn off the GPS. Now, if you have a vehicle that has OnStar, or your parents have a vehicle that has OnStar tracks your vehicle. It knows everywhere it is, where you go, the whole bit. They track it, so if they need to find you, they can find you. So that there's good and bad in this. While my wife might accuse me of going to a wine tasting party today, I can say, oh no, I drove to school. I was there. All little does she know, though, I might just give my phone to a colleague and let him drive it in. You never know, do you? But it's a strange thing. But it's also meant to let you get an idea of how, are you walking. Do any of you have a Fitbit? Okay. My wife has one of those things, and it tracks. And the data on your walking and what time of day you're walking, all that, they've got all that data. So a person that fits your profile, they're going to try to sell you some different products in addition to the Fitbit, because they know you're all concerned about your fitness. You walk your 8,000 steps a day. Yeah, my wife's become a fanatic about that. I got 500 steps more to do. I just go, okay, enjoy. But I can go back all the way if I want, and I'll just show you. I can go back to Sunday. Yes, I went to church. There's my church. Yeah, Saturday. And we went looking at the parade of homes. Notice, look at that. That's a house we were at. We stopped and looked at it in the parade of homes. We went out. My wife loves the property brothers and real estate and all that. It's usually me as the one that gets to live with the results of all those choices. But you can see the exact coordinates of where we were. Okay. And then they take us and walk us, and they can walk us. And again, if I want to see the raw data, now I can do this raw data that's even more telling, is I can show the data, okay? And if I want to, I can export this data to a KML, what's called a KML file. And then I can take that KML file and convert it to a CSV file, comma separated value, and it will give me the coordinates and the day and the time. So I can track exactly where somebody was. So these are the kinds of things that are happening with these systems. It's just amazing. Well, I'm going to log out there so that now you've seen all where I've been. And I do want to let you know I do almost every Sunday on Facebook. I do check in from my church. And there have been a couple of your colleagues who've seen me there, and now they know I don't just sit in the parking lot and check in at the church. I'm actually there. I know there's that rumor was floating around, but it's not true. I am actually going to church. It's not doing any good, and I understand that. I appreciate that greatly. We'll go back here to Landstat. Now, again, just one of those things that you could see. And the company that's really the leaders I've talked with you about before is Esri, E-S-R-I. They're a firm out in California, and they do a tremendous amount. Well, that is their thing, is geospatial data and geospatial analysis, and just incredible the stuff that you can see and do with all that data, and particularly with the ability to track. In fact, I think those of you who've taken maybe the database course with me, I think I took you out to a link that showed you how retailers now can track can get the heat signature of your phone and track you as you go through their store. A little different. And so you guys will have to work through that privacy issue, because it's going to be one of those issues that you'll have to work yourselves through. Now, I'm going to go back on over here to the modules. And we had that interactive session, and again, that was that one that we talked about, the age of big data. Now, one of the positive things about this is that we're able also with that to utilize that data for medical purposes, to find information about people, to find out if there are patterns in a family, or if people have, or if there's something that their medicine that they're taking. They have all kinds of applications they have yet to figure out. The biggest one is just simply archiving data on people and how they do, with particularly in the pharmaceutical industry. So there are some good uses of it, but again, it's a privacy question that you guys are going to have to deal with. Now, I put together just a short little web safari, okay, and this is a Word doc. And I'll tell you what, let's do this. I'm going to go back here for just a second, and why don't you download that document, okay? And we should be able to, just download it to your desktop. And then I want to show you some things that are kind of apropos in terms of what we've been talking about here with data privacy. And then I've got the links and what the topic is in that business. This is the first one. This is going to be one that's really going to change the credit industry. And this is Equifax. You may have heard about this, but they had a data breach at Equifax, which is a credit reporting agency. There's Equifax, and another is Experian. And Equifax is a pretty large outfit. And what's happened is that they have had a breach of their data, and they're probably I think the two people who were the executives, they stepped down, they resigned. And there's a lot of questions about what is their personal culpability in all of this, okay? And again, this is one of the largest breaches of data, consumer data, we've ever had. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 40 million people. 143 million, excuse me. That's not half the population of the country. That's a lot. Now, does that mean you're going to lose all of your privacy and data? No. What happens is these folks have sites out on the so-called dark web where they sell data. Now, the people who are really the ones that those folks are after are folk like you, because you're young, you don't have much credit history, so they can build around the data about you and construct a nice little thing. Someone like me, I have too much credit history and too many patterns. And I remember one Friday afternoon, I was at the house and I got a phone call, and it was our credit union. They said, somebody's tried to use your card in Atlanta, Georgia. I said, well, we're obviously not in Atlanta, Georgia, we're here. And they were trying to purchase something that just didn't fit our profile. And so we stopped the transaction. But this is a terrible, terrible situation for the people involved, and not good. And it, I think, is going to have an impact on how the data are collected and how they're stored and all that. Here's another one. And this is something that the people at Facebook, Twitter, to a great extent also, see, they're already tracking me. Now you see that? You see the pop-up? They know I'm floating around out there. Go, oh, maybe we got somebody here. We may have a live one. But now I wonder what they'll do if I click on the Disney thing. Oh, that's nice. Oh, there you go. Anyway, this is a real dilemma for these social media companies, and I think, you know, I've tried to incorporate a textbook that helps you try to understand that in many ways social media are a solution companies are trying to find a problem for. And most companies just have not figured out what to do with it except in the most rudimentary ways. Now, early on, 5 years ago, it was, you know, really 10 years ago, it was really cool to have a Facebook page, have a Twitter account, and all that. But it comes with some risks. Now, as a company, Google and Facebook have been trying to be sensitive to people, and these are if you go on the web, you can find some really crazy websites, stuff that's just sickening. And they are, Facebook and Google are trying to target those sites and take them down and shutter them. And there's a lot of people who say, well, wait a minute, you know, the internet's based on free speech. It's based on kind of having a place where people can talk, where anybody with anything nutty can talk. And some of this also has flowed out of these people like ISIS. They recruit people into their service by using social media, and they target people who fit a certain profile, and then they go after them. And this is a problem that they're having here because they're getting some pushback from people who say, well, you know, I'm sorry, even though I am a member of the KKK, I have a right to say what I think. I have a right to post whatever I want to, because all the liberal people get to as well. And that's the problem of living in a free society is, you know, you got some nutty people here or there, and you got to deal with it. But Facebook's under pressure from their advertisers who say, we don't want anything to do with it, okay? And so this is a problem that they're facing. And I also wanted to show this to you as well, since we were there. Now, you've heard a lot about people talking about them hacking the Russians hacking the election, opening up emails, etc. And here's a thing where they were using ads, and they had fake people, fake Americans posting stuff. And one of the most awful things was there's some pizza place up back east that the guy, one of these truly fake news places, put out a thing that said that it was a place where people were luring in, that the people who ran the pizza place were child molesters, and that's how they lured children in. And a guy went in there with a gun and was going to shoot the place up. Crazy. So this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what they're doing. Now, we do know, and the general public's not aware of this, but if you read much, and if you're like me, you're kind of an intelligence junkie, we do know that there were at least about a dozen attempted intrusions into our data, into our voter data systems. We do know they got some information on voters and voter patterns, but thankfully our systems are so disparate and we're decentralized to such an extent, and a lot of our equipment is so old that they really can't get to it. So there is an advantage to some of that. But again, that's one of these issues that these folks are trying to deal with in Facebook, and companies like Google or Facebook having to deal with, say, China, where China says, you know, boom, there are only certain sites that people can access, and we want to track what people are doing. North Korea is an interesting place. They have an intranet, which is their internet, and they say, yes, you could search, and they have a page that pops up, looks like their Google, and it's the state, the North Korean state, limits what they can see. They can't phone out or get out, see anything beyond what's within that thing. So these are the kinds of issues that we have to deal with in terms of just trying to use the technology to do some good stuff. So I thought you'd find that interesting, especially this about all the ads, and it's not going to stop. This is a new form of warfare that's out there. and businesses have to be careful about it. You've probably heard about what happened to Sony when they made fun of my favorite politician, Kim Jong-un, who I think has the coolest haircut on the planet. I like it. He looks good. And if he's a fan of Dennis Rodman, who is, by the way, a native of Oklahoma, then he's a fan of mine. So I think I get worried when Dennis leaves the country and goes to North Korea, because I think that might be the window, because I know if Dennis is here, he won't push the buttons. So I get a little worried. But that all being said, again, these are the kinds of things that companies are getting drawn into the middle of. Google's in the middle of these kinds of things with privacy issues with a lot of countries. Facebook, the same story. And again, this is just one of these issues that we run into with this with technology. Here's another one. This is Kaspersky Lab. Their antivirus. That's what they sell. But this gentleman is also he is a very, very wealthy Russian, and has heavy ties to the people in the Russian government. And so there's a lot of concern about us having him run the antivirus for our government computers. And I think any simpleton would go, okay, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. But people have gotten concerned about it. Now, he's denied this, but those folks live in a whole different world. If the government over there doesn't like you, it's simple. They bring up charges on tax that you've evaded your taxes, and they'll put you in jail for 5 or 10 years. Now, here's WikiLeaks. I bet you've heard all about WikiLeaks, but I bet you've never even been there, have you? But you've heard about it all this time. Who are they? What are they all about? WikiLeaks is the place where these emails and the information data get dumped. They want you to donate to them. I don't plan to, but they have, you can do, it's a database of data that you're not supposed to be seeing. Okay. And here's Casper project of the CIA. Okay. And they are collecting data from video streams, and basically what they're doing is monitoring that to see if you've tuned into the latest ISIS live stream on Facebook. If you have, your name goes on the list, I can guarantee it. And just all kinds of information, hacking tools. So if you've heard about it, you've been here, it's a searchable database, and they would like you to donate some money so they can continue to do what they think is their good work. I've got my own feelings about it, my own opinions of it. But again, this is one of these ways that people try to keep governments accountable by exposing secret information. I think probably the most explosive thing that they did was they made public a video. This was of a drone attack that was targeted to kill, I think it was either the Taliban or ISIS, and what actually ended up doing was killing about a dozen innocent people. And when it hit the airwaves, boy, the political stuff went ballistic. Here's WordPress.com. I'm going to show you that one because you can go ahead and anybody can start their own blog and kind of publish themselves and create their own little news things. And this is one of these things that's driving people crazy, because the old rules that were established in terms of journalism, those are gone. You don't have to invest $100 million to build a TV station. You just get a website and away you go. You may have heard of the very conservative, very conservative website Breitbart, okay? And the politics of it aside, the guy, the man who the man who started, he's no longer alive. He died, and the president's former advisor owns that. But he started that website to promote far-right kinds of rhetoric and far-right kinds of stories, because he believed that the so-called mainstream press was quote-unquote liberal. But again, this has changed everything in terms of the information that's out there, misinformation that's out there. And during the election, I thought it was unbelievable. I'd get stories of all kinds of, stuff like, Chelsea Clinton shot JFK, crazy stuff. And someone would retweet it to me, or they'd forward it to me, and I'd always ask, is this true? And a lot of times, it wasn't true stuff. It was just crazy stuff that was out there. And then here's one. Let's see if this, it's going to take us out there. These are the top 10 sites for people who want to build a blog, who want to have a voice, have something to say. My favorite, see here they are. They already know I'm there, so they've done a little drop down. We've seen that twice now. That's part of that tracking stuff. YouTube is one of my favorites, and there's some kid now that is he has now the most hits. Some kid from China or something. But you can see here's just all kinds of stuff. But if you have a video camera, you can become famous. You can start your own stream. And I can't remember, there was somebody that was on. My wife is a Dancing with the Stars freak, and so, by the way, I want you to know, you're looking at the Saint. I took her there one summer. They were coming through, and they were in was it Wichita, and I took her to see Dancing with the Stars, and I sat there and watched it. Okay, now I'm going to say this. I'm not a Dancing with the Stars fan, although I would say this. I was impressed live with the physicality of what they do. And it's so funny because my wife is such a huge fan. And it's a long story, but we ended up being bumped into the same hotel they were staying in. And so I got a chance to just run into some of them. And I'll tell you what, the men are buff as you could throw a quarter and it'll bounce off. They're just studs. They look like they ought to be playing pro football. So they're not sissies by any stretch of the imagination. But I got to meet them and stuff. And my poor wife came down 10 minutes too late, and it was already over and done. But it happened to her that same summer. That same week, she's a big Cardinals fan. Went to see the Cardinals, and Fred Bird and I were like this. You know who Fred Bird is? What? You don't know who Fred Bird is? Oh, shame on all of you. You need to know all your sports mascots. They're the heroes. No one knows anything about. So I want to take you on a short little web safari and give you an idea. Particularly, I think some of the current stuff that's going on that's apropos of what we're dealing with, and to just kind of help you take some of this and put it into perspective. Now, the chapter that we're dealing with over here in chapter 4 in Latin. Now, I don't want to be too pedantic, excuse me, but I do want to take just a quick little tour through it and talk about some things that are important over there in terms of concepts. And you're getting a quiz over it, but the main thing that I want to impress upon you, and there are some key things. The first is over on page 131, and that's the non-obvious relationship awareness, the NORA, okay, and the alerts. And that's how that tracking can find anomalies, non-obvious relationships. And again, now, I told you the story about my card being hacked. And it was some kid in Atlanta, Georgia, who somehow had gotten our card data. I don't know how. And he was making a purchase. First of all, it was on a Friday afternoon. It was in Atlanta, Georgia, and and when they called, they knew for sure, you know, hey, we're home. We're not in Atlanta, Georgia. And he purchased a product, okay, that didn't fit our profile. And I said, what do you mean? And the lady said, well, I really can't tell you too much, except that he would try to purchase something that you and your wife would never purchase. And I said, how would you know we wouldn't? She said, because we see all your purchases. And I said, well, I guess that makes sense. Okay. So in that sense, it worked out pretty good. So that business there on page 131, non-obvious relationships, that's a new technology that's out there. And they have a nice section here about Edward Snowden, and his role. There was a guy named Daniel Ellsberg who released a bunch of tapes back in the 1960s that exposed things about the United States involvement in the Vietnamese War that were not very complimentary towards the United States, and he was branded a traitor, a very controversial person. Snowden is among people on that whole list. I think the heart of the chapter really boils down to the bottom of page 134 and 135, where they talk about the ethical principles, okay, that get applied. And all of us have these kind of ethical principles embedded in us, and they walk you through those. You know, the golden rule, the aversion principle, the utilitarian principle. Each of those are explained quite well, and I think that whether you know it or not, you probably operate from them. The page 137 walks you through all the federal privacy laws in the United States. We have quite a few. They're nothing at all like Europe. Europe is far, far more restrictive in terms of the type of data that people can harvest on you. And that's just simply because they're so sensitive to those kinds of things. And it's not, and here we're kind of like the Wild West compared to Europe, because of commercial interests. People want to collect information so they can sell you stuff, or they know what you might be likely to buy next, etc. And I don't know, have you guys heard the famous Target story? Okay. Well, Target is one of the leading proponents of using big data. And there's a young lady who was going in, and she was shopping in Target, and she just happened to purchase a device that would let her test her body to see if she was in a certain condition. I'll say no more. Well, about a week later, at her house arrives a thing from Target, which was a direct mailer based on that purchase and what that purchase might tell, of baby products. Now, this is a young girl. She's about 15 years old, 16 years old. Her parents obviously went ballistic, and she had used their credit card, their Target card. And so there a whole big brouhaha ensued when the father and the mother saw this, basically coupons for diapers and all kinds of things. And, you know, and so that's one of those stories out there that tells you how much data these people collect, and they'll use to send you things. You know, we just moved last year, and my goodness, we're still getting stuff from people that say, "Welcome to the neighborhood." And I'm going, "Okay, I've been here a while. I think we could stop this." So then at the bottom of 137, all the Federal Trade Commission fair information data. They talk about the European directive, and they did a pretty good job of describing that and talking about it. And you know, I don't really know how to impress upon you a lot about this. A lot about this course involves issues, and they're issues that are pretty challenging. And information, and this course, we had designed it so that we would bring your level of awareness to this. Think for a moment, all the stuff that's out there about you and about your life, and you know it's going to be out there as long as the internet's there. And so you're never ever going to really be able to change identities. And there's a lot of talk among people about how do we create an internet that somehow forgets. So if someone changes their name, they're not found, or all that type of stuff. And I can guarantee you, any pictures you've posted on social media that aren't so hot, or crazy things you've said or written, whatever, they're there. And you have to be careful. I would say if you're on your own media and you have Facebook, Twitter, anything, you should on a routine basis say, this is my opinion and nobody else's. Otherwise, your employer might say, hey, no, wait a minute, that's, and you're always seeing stuff about somebody, you know, tweets something, an athlete tweets something, or a coach or something, somebody puts something and they get fired. That's a piece of all this, trying to sort through who owns the information. If I'm out there and I say something in a post, should it be brought back, and should it be, is it something that will affect my job? So you guys are going to have to make some decisions about how all of that is handled. I think the last thing I wanted to talk to you about over in chapter 4 is this issue of trickle down technology. Now, if you may or may not recall this, but when we were having that terrible summer during the election, when we had the guy who holed himself up in a building in Dallas and was shooting policemen and shooting people, it was a Black Lives Matter protest, and this guy went crazy, he started shooting police. You know how they took him out? Anybody remember? They sent a robot that had an explosive attached. This is the first time this has ever been done, that we sent a robot instead of a law enforcement officer. And I can guarantee you, if you go out and you start to search what's going on with robotics and those types of machines in warfare, you'll be in a state of shock, because it's going much faster than anybody ever imagined. And we now have, of course, if you're aware, drones. And I'll just show you something. Again, this is one of those issues that that we have to deal with. I'm going to put drone killing. Civilian casualties. This is an article that was done in the Atlantic, which is a highly credible news source. This talked about the Obama administration. I'm not telling you I'm a Republican, Democrat, anything like that, but what I am going to say is that administration really put the pedal to the metal in terms of doing two things. One, tracking people, and two, using these devices to take people out. And this is an excellent article that talks about the use of the machines and how many people they've been used. Okay, to take people out. Now, this is a moral dilemma for us, because if somebody's sitting over in Colorado with a joystick in a dark room with a screen about this size, looking down, getting a satellite image, zeroing down to about the level of maybe you and I standing off the top of this building from here and looking down and making the decision to fire or not. Okay. I went on a tour of the facility, the train facility there in Colorado Springs, and I'll tell you what, it was creepy. And you literally, they talked about the fact that they've got folks who are having the same kinds of symptoms as people who fight on the front lines, because, hey, I'm here at work, I killed 10 people today, and I go home. I drive to Walmart, pick up some groceries. As absurd as that sounds, that's the lives of some of those people. And the Air Force is really the folks who are driving that process of using them. But that administration really upped up the ante in the use of those machines. And we'll have some moral decisions to make or some questions to ask ourselves about those devices. Okay? Do we want to use them? Should we use them or not? And it's not far-fetched. It's going much faster than what you would even believe. And by the time you're my age, you guys will either be in the middle of a terrible, terrible dilemma, or you will hopefully have gotten some answers about what to do. Another question would be, and it's an interesting thing to think about, is let's say that you're one of the first in your block to get one of these cars that drives itself. Okay, what if the car? Hey, good to see it. What happens if if you have a wreck? Who gets sued? The manufacturer of the vehicle? You? Both of you? Who's responsible? We haven't sorted all those things out yet, so it'll be an interesting thing to see what happens. There's a lot here in this chapter, and I hope this helped provide some amplification to it and got you thinking, because these are serious issues, and our economy and everything we do is so run today by data that these issues of who owns the data, what we do with it, privacy rights, etc., are some of the most critical questions that we have, and it's going to be up to you to try to find some answers to them. That's pretty much it. Now, again, I like everybody's responses, and I'll go back here, and I saw some good responses here. Now let me ask you, did I last week use the voice thing, the speech to text? Oh, that's kind of a cool little thing. Hey, can you see me? I'm gonna leave the student view for just a second, and I'll show you something. This will kind of get your attention, because the advances they're making are so fast. Here's an interactive page. Now, I don't know if I have the microphone that will work. I would assume it might. Let me do speed grader for a real second. Let's see what happens. Okay, now this thing is supposed to be speech recognition, and I'm supposed to be able to say something. So let's see what happens. I'll turn on the speech recognition, and I'll record, and I'll say yeah, and I'll begin recording. And I'll allow it to use my microphone, and all I can say is this is the worst paper you've ever turned in, and I wish you'd leave OBU. I'm going to flunk you. I don't like you. Why did you post this in my website? Who are you? And we'll finish it. And here it is. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? That's the speech recognition. Now, I'm going to get rid of that because that's being mean. But speech recognition technology, facial recognition technology, one of the reasons they keep developing your cameras is because did you know that in the past 2 years that we've had more photos taken than have been taken in the entire history of the world? That's how many pictures people take every day. And so what's happening is these companies are saying, you know, if we develop cameras really well and put them in these miniature cameras, we can use that as a security device. Okay? So if it doesn't recognize you, it won't work. It'll be by your time you're my age, it'll be that. It'll be your car. It'll be the same way. It won't start. And maybe it'll let you in, but if you're not in a good mood, it won't let you go anywhere. Okay? And there will be a day and time where if you get in a vehicle and you're going to drive it, you'll have to go through some kind of hand-eye coordination test to see if you're fit to drive. Okay? And that's only fair. I don't want you running me over. Well, folks, I appreciate the time. Don't forget, now I'll do a pre-recorded session on Wednesday. It'll be over there for you. And I look forward to seeing your work on the rest of the assignments. And I'll post that online Wednesday, and we'll see you next week. Take care now.